Hi everyone, good evening from Morocco. So welcome to another online session. So today we will talk about a very great topic with Sean Robinson from Canada. So Sean actually will talk about the connection lens and the power of human connection. So feel free to ask your questions, to post comments. Hi Sean. Welcome to Everyone Academy. You
Hi,
can do a
Aziz.
little presentation or introduction about your background. Hi.
Yes, Aziz, could
So
you
welcome
let
to Everyone
me,
Academy.
could you give me
Yes,
the
you would
power
like to
to
share
share
your
my
presentation?
screen? Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Feel free to share your screen. Welcome again.
Well, thanks, Aziz. Thanks, Everyone Academy. So great to be with you. My name is Sean Robinson, and I just asked Aziz if I could just share a profile of myself because sometimes it's difficult to, talk about yourself. So I just thought I'd share my eHarmony profile so that you get a little idea of who we're talking to today. So my name is Sean Robinson, and you can just read my profile. Okay, I better stop that. No, this is a better one. That's just a joke, folks. This is probably more what you were expecting. So my name is Sean Robinson. I consider myself an elementary trained middle school teacher that happens to be teaching high school. So I've been through the gamut. I'm from Canada, from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, Canada. I've wrote a couple books. I've worked with both the Global Teacher Prize. I'm one of the ambassadors for them, and also the BC Premier's Award as well. And I connect with the Teach SDGs folks. That's my Twitter. That's my Instagram. So that's just a little bit about Sean Robinson.
Great.
How are we doing, Aziz?
Yes. Great.
Well, why don't I just talk a little bit about why I'm here? Aziz approached me, and one of the questions that he asked me was, I've heard you've written this book, Connection Lens. What's that all about? And for me, my teaching transformation started when I began to use project-based learning. I would give my students and kind of an open field, allow them to do some project-based learning. And I found that as my students were completing these projects, there were two zones of projects. When the students would work on a project and they would make a connection outside the school, they'd do some campaigning, or they would tweet somebody, make a connection with somebody, then the project was elevated. But when they didn't make any connection, when it was insular, when it stayed inside the school, then the project was good, but it seemed like it could be better. And that started me on a journey that caused me to think, well, can we create an approach to teaching that is based on human connection? Could all our projects connect with somebody outside the class? That caused me to start this approach called connections-based learning. And I felt comfortable to say, yes, we can base our learning on making human connections. I wrote a book called Connections-Based Learning, and it really outlined the approach. Years later, as I was trying to help educators to understand the approach, I found that I needed to create something to help them get an understanding of how one's vision has to change. I didn't want to have educators to, do more work. Hey, we're busy already. We've got our reports and our, parent-teacher conferences. We've got all that marking to do. I didn't want to add anything to what a teacher needed to do, but I wanted to share with them how they could shift their lens, shift the way that they view their learning outcomes. That caused me to write a second book called The Connection Lens. And that's a book that can help any educator to be able to teach with the power of human connection. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So Aziz, did I hit everything as far as kind of the introduction?
Yes, the introduction. Yes. Now you can share your presentation and talk about the topic, which seems very interesting, really.
Awesome. So let me share my presentation here. Here we go.
Okay.
So I'm happy to be here with everyone at the Everyone Academy. Aziz has been so gracious to be able to connect with me beforehand, to get me set up, to understand the audience. And I really want to make this an interactive time. So feel free. I don't have access to the chat, but Aziz has access to the chat. So feel free to answer any kind of questions that I put out there in the chat. I'll probably send out a question, then do a little bit more talking and sharing, and then come back to that question and see what kind of responses we've had, just to keep things alive and going. So the first question I have for everyone is, when you consider the learning outcomes for a class that you're about to teach, what is the first thing that you do? What do you do? You've got a brand new class, you've got learning outcomes that you're about to help your students explore. What do you do? I want you to think about that and put it in the chat. Are you looking for materials? Are you gathering some exercises, putting together some projects? What do you do? Okay, so in the chat, just jot down a bunch of different things. It can be a quick little thing. Hey, I work on creating some projects, or I access prior knowledge to understand what my students know and what they don't know. Just add that to the chat. Aziz, are we getting anything in the chat?
Yes, we will wait for people to write their comments or questions, and I will pass them to you when they are ready.
Fantastic. All right. So to keep going, I just want to start off with this quote by an Aboriginal Canadian. His name is 𝗵𝘂𝗵𝗁𝗆. He's an MLA for Manitoba, Director of Indigenous Inclusion at the University of Winnipeg. He's also a hip hop artist. And here in Canada, we are putting an emphasis on recognizing First Peoples principles, on really recognizing our Indigenous background. And so I shared this quote with you from 𝗵𝘂𝗵𝗁𝗆. I come to you humbly, not to tell you what to do on your journey, but to share with you what I've learned on mine. In that vein, I'm going to share a little bit about my journey, and hopefully our journeys align, and you can find where your journey and my journey meet, and we can work together to help each other move forward. I've got a mission. My mission is to make the educational landscape a more connected place. You can see several classes here, whether it's 𝗪𝗏𝗺𝗍 that we're connecting with and learning about the global goals, whether it's the Dominican Republic, where we created these low cost solar powered lanterns to help the needy people in the local 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗿, the shanty towns where there was a lack of electricity. These are the kinds of things that I try to do in my classroom. And then I also try to encourage educators to be a part of this as well. If our journeys align, this is a way that you can definitely help me. I've got a few books, and every link that I share is a quick bit.ly. So the first bit.lys I'm about to share are the books. So if the connections-based learning or the connection lens resonates with you, you might want to check it out on Amazon. So it's bit.ly/CBL small book or CBL small book 2. Easy links to get there. So that's the learn part. I'm encouraging you to share as well as you make connections with other educators and you've found that this has been helpful. Please share out what you've learned regarding connections-based learning. And then finally, if you do end up taking a look at the book, I need reviews. So it would be great if you could put a review into Amazon if that's where you got the book from. Amazon reviews are so helpful for me. So if you find that you're going to connect with what we're talking about here, these are some ways that can help you on your journey. I'm also working together with Catherine Nagabugo from Uganda on building a school for girls. You can learn more about it at the GoFundMe, which is once again a bit.ly, and then it's CBL school. When you click on that, you're going to go to the GoFundMe. It's going to tell you all about this girls' school that we're putting together. And the girls' school, I mean, it's exciting. We're trying to teach girls STEM, also many different skills, whether it's baking, knitting, bricklaying, tailoring. We've just built the toilets. So with money that has come through the GoFundMe, I've sent it off to Catherine, and she's been able to build the toilets. So we've got the toilet enclosure already going. We've got a number of the buildings. It's such an exciting project, and it would be great if you want to check that out. So that's just a little bit about what's going on with me. I want everybody to take a cleansing breath. 47% of the time, adults aren't present in the moment. So I want you to focus now. And then back to that question I showed you. Think about a time when you first looked at some learning outcomes. What was the first thing that you did or would do? Now, Aziz, any comments that we have so far? Aziz, you are on mute, so I can't hear you just yet.
Sean, I said maybe we can focus on project-based learning because most of the colleagues that I know are working on this. Online collaboration with the international schools, exchanging experiences, etc. So maybe this will be very interesting to teachers to focus on projects, how project-based learning can help students, be global learners or active citizens.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to elevate those projects to the point of connections-based learning. But the foundation with project-based learning is really to take a look at those learning outcomes and to put them in the form of a project. The problem happens when educators really prescribe for the students everything that the students need to do. And these projects become more about the educator making choices than the student actually making choices. one of the things that's really important for project-based learning is to give students a voice and choice, to allow students to have the kind of ownership in that project so that they feel like they're the ones that are making the choices around the projects. With that, there's so much more motivation that can take place. So that's the basis of that. When we add a connection to that project, we change the project from it being more of just around student learning and teacher goals. We change that to activism, campaigning, and we elevate the learning for our students. So that's a bit about how project-based learning can really help educators.
So voice and choice mean that we should not impose our own ideas on students. We should give them a choice to maybe to choose the topics, to choose how they are going to work with the project.
Yeah, that's definitely it. Now, we start with a learning outcome. Now, that's something that maybe is given to us by the government, by the educational body that is in charge of our district or our province or our state, country. So we have these kinds of topics, but the way that we have our students explore these learning outcomes, that's up to us as educators. So yes, definitely, Aziz, we're able to give over to our students a lot of agency to help them to be able to uncover and explore these learning outcomes. We want to take a step back from prescribing some kind of recipe that says, well, you do this, student, and then you do this, and then you do this, and you should get this, and here's a test to see if you got it. That takes away all kinds of voice where a student feels like they have a voice, or all kinds of choice where a student feels like they can make decisions about their own learning.
Yes.
Now, Aziz, I am going to talk a little bit about when we add that connection. So I'm going to share an answer that I made to this question when I considered learning outcomes. And I'm going to see if it resonates with your audience, all right?
Yes.
All right. This is how I approached a learning outcome that I had. The learning outcome for me was around scientific thinking. It was electricity, and I had to teach my students Ohm's law. And in order to teach my students, what I looked for was a who. I looked for a person. This is how we teach with the power of connection, is that when we look at our learning outcomes, we begin by finding people that can lead our students to these learning outcomes. So I don't start with a prescribed recipe or formula. I start with a person. Here, I'm going to switch my slides up here. And when I was faced with a certain learning outcome, one of them was around electricity, I made a tweet. I tweeted 𝗵𝘂𝗵𝗵𝗺, and I asked him, hey, can you help us to make a connection with people who are in need? And we created a Skype chat, and this is how it went. So I'm going to share a quick video on this, our first connection, and how it had an impact on my students. So here we go. Now, Aziz, let me know if the video, the audio is not playing, or if it's not working, all right?
Okay.
Hi, Ladio.
Greetings.
Can you see us?
I see you, but I don't see me. Hold on.
No problem. I don't see you either.
Soon, there we are in all our splendor and beauty. Bam!
Awesome.
Greetings, Dominican Republic.
Hi, Dennis. How you doing?
We're doing good. End of the day here, beginning of the day for you guys. Sorry to hear that.
We're just getting going. So greetings from British Columbia, Canada. Just to kind of start us off, so my name is Sean Robinson, and I'm a teacher here at Riverside Secondary. We have a Science 9 class here that's happy to communicate with the Dominican Republic and just learn about what's going on there. And I hear that you have some students that have stuck around after school, so we really appreciate that.
Okay, you know, I'm here till 5. It's only 2:30.
Burning the midnight oil. Thanks. Yeah,
we had some kids that came and stayed after school so they could more or less speak to your 9th graders and give them sort of, show them a couple of photos and tell them about a trip that they took to the sugarcane fields, 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗿, as they call them. Those are basically the slums where they keep the paid slaves.
Wow. Okay,
So there's paid slavery here.
It sounds pretty bad.
It's not the best place to be.
Okay. All right. Well, we look forward to hear.
All right. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second and mention that you can just imagine how a simple Skype chat really engaged my students. Just imagine how the students might respond to something like that. Once that's happened, students have motivation. They hear about the 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗿, and we went on to talk about the lack of electricity there. We have a conversation about it, but it leads students to start to campaign. They have the agency to respond. And what I do is I turn to my students after we have this kind of a session, and I say, now that we know what we know, what are we going to do about it? Or what are we going to make about it? And bringing in that idea of makerspace. That leads students to have that kind of agency, that kind of motivation to campaign, the voice and the choice. And I'm still accomplishing all of the learning outcomes that I had. If it's EFL that the students are learning, they're learning communication. They may have to write some letters. They may have to do some tweeting, make some emails as they campaign, and they're making decisions. How do we respond to this? How do we share this out? Maybe everybody needs to hear about this. So what kinds of language do we need to have around something like this? So we start with that connection, then we give our students agency to be able to respond to the connection. So Aziz, I want to hand it back to you and just see, what kinds of thoughts. I'm going to share my screen a little bit. I think I have a quick question here to get people thinking. So let's get to my question here.
So Sean,
yes,
I have a quick comment.
Yeah, sure.
Is the purpose of this session is to engage your student to talk with the other students from the other school?
Yeah, definitely.
Or to solve a particular problem, maybe.
Well, once again,
what was the purpose
go ahead.
I said, what was the purpose of collaboration with this school through Skype?
My learning outcomes for this was to teach my students some technical, scientific vocabulary, Ohm's law, okay? learning about electricity, different types of circuits. Okay, so this was more of a science class, but I'm trying to make it meaningful for the EFL educators who are thinking, well, what does that mean for me? Well, think about the kind of discussion that happens. Definitely, Aziz, we spent the next half hour, maybe an hour, with to and fro, dialoguing with the students in the Dominican Republic. So definitely getting my students to be able to talk. But what I'm saying is that this covers a whole host of learning outcomes, a very powerful way of having students explore learning outcomes. Now, does that answer your question, Aziz?
Yes, yes.
So I'm going to put out a question to...
So we have Rana from Palestine. Rana,
Okay.
do you have a question for Sean?
Sure.
Yes, okay. Go ahead. Okay, yes, go ahead, yes. Are you sharing your screen, Sean?
No, I'm waiting for the question. What was the question from Marana from Palestine? I can't hear it, so you're going to have to relay
Oh, no,
it to
she
me.
just said hi.
Okay. I was waiting for some kind
No,
of tough
she
question.
just said hi.
All right. So here we
Yes,
go. Here's
okay, so
I'm going to share my screen. So here's another question for the audience. Keep in mind that the way that we've set it up here, I can't hear the questions or the answers that the educators here are giving me, but I want to give you this question now. How can an activity like this take learning to the next level? So we've made a connection. We have our learning outcomes. We have our students dialoguing with educators from wherever, with a class from, in this case, it was the Dominican Republic. How can an activity like this take learning to the next level? I'm sending that out to our audience, and I'd love to hear what kinds of thoughts they have. Anything coming up, Aziz?
not yet.
Not yet. Well, why don't I get the audience to think about that? And I'm going to share a little bit more, because not only do I want you to be able to kind of learn about this kind of teaching, I want you to understand a little bit more about how to make it your own. All right. So what I have done is I've created something called the revisioning cycle. I'm going to share my screen again here and allow you to see just what I'm talking about here. In the latest book that I wrote, I created a way to help educators to use this kind of teaching, this leveraging connection for learning in their classes. And I asked them to do 6 things. So the book takes you around this this cycle of 6 things, okay? The first thing is to rethink.
Yes.
So I have some research that helps you to understand how to upgrade your knowledge and skills around the power of connection, okay? So we start with that research, looking at learning, the history of learning, in fact, learning approaches, and we allow you to rethink your understanding of the power of connection. Then we go to reframe. We've got to reframe our learning goals in terms of who. Who can we engage as we're learning? Then we reach out to our learning partners, and I've got a whole host of resources to help you to do that. We release our students to work on responding to the connection. When we release our students, that's where we get that agency, that voice, that choice, where we're giving students power to be able to accomplish these learning goals in the way that they want to. We ask students to reflect and respond to that connection. We also reflect on what our students are doing. And the marking becomes more about reflecting on what the students have done. We respond to the students. And that's where normally a teacher would mark. But I'm talking about actually responding to their ideas, having students self-evaluate, sure, if we need to get a grade, we can look at a rubric and have students to either self-evaluate, you can evaluate them on a certain rubric. But really the point is to engage the students in their ideas, all right? Help them to know that they've been heard. And then we repeat it, we do it again. So there's this cyclical way of developing what I call the connection lens, all right? So the first thing that we have to do is upgrade our understanding of the power of connection. Now, Aziz, I'm going to hand it back to you. Any responses from our audience?
Is this like a continuous cycle? You repeat it over and over again until you achieve your objective, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, I have to say that as an educator, we have a cycle to our days, right? We
Yes.
have new days, we have new weeks, we have new units, we have new sets of students, new semesters. Every semester we get a new set of students, or every year, a new set of students. I see us going through this cycle with new sets of students every year. The way that I've done it is every year I seem to connect with different people and make different kinds of connections to help my students to uncover those learning outcomes. And every year it helps me develop what I call the connection lens. So we harness those cycles that are within education, that are deep set within education. All right, does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Fantastic. Any other thoughts from the audience?
Yes, just go ahead. If I saw something, I will pass it to you.
Okay, fantastic. The first thing is to rethink, to upgrade your understanding of the power of connection. You might say, okay, Sean, I hear what you're saying, but does the research support anything that you're saying? In fact, I'm going to share some studies with you that talk about the importance, the power that connection has. Here is a Canadian study. So a study that has gathered data from 93 schools in 10 Canadian districts. And what Doug Wilms, Sharon Friesen, and Penny Milton did is they created a measure to study student engagement. They were looking at engagement and they realized that students were disengaged, and it was getting worse as students went through their schooling. They might be engaged in the younger years in primary, elementary school. Middle school was a lack of lessening of engagement, and then high school, less than half of the students were engaged. 48% of students were actually intellectually engaged using the measure that Wilms, Friesen, and Milton created. And what they found was that to increase that engagement, they needed to have educators help students to understand several things, and this led to an increased engagement. Students needed to understand how subjects were interconnected, right? That kind of project-based, looking at more than just a single strand of learning outcomes. That students would feel respected, but that they would be working on real problems, that they would learn from and with each other and people in their community, that they were making connections in the community, that they felt that they were making a difference in the world, that they were connecting with experts and expertise. These are the things that helped increase engagement, and that students would have more opportunities to dialogue about their learning. Such an important, groundbreaking study to look at helping students going from disengaged to engaged. And our redesigned curriculum here in British Columbia, Canada, some of it was based on these kinds of studies to help students increase their engagement in school. All right, work needs to be relevant, meaningful, authentic. Students need to make connections with the world outside the classroom. Students want stronger relationships with their teachers, with each other, and with their communities, locally, provincially, nationally, globally. That's what students are looking for. That is what increases engagement in students. I have another study here about just video conferencing. Now, when we make these connections, it doesn't necessarily have to be a video conference, although these days, with the social distancing required for COVID-19, we've been seeing a lot of using Microsoft Teams, using Zoom, using WhatsApp in education. A couple of years ago, when this study was done, video conferencing wasn't really necessarily a huge part in education. Now it's just exploded. So what's the research around video conferencing in the classroom? Well, 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗵 and 𝗵𝘂𝗺 in 2016, they published a study in the Journal of Social Studies Education. All right, and what they did is they looked through the scholarly literature surrounding video conferencing in the classroom, and they were looking for strands that they could pull out. What are the commonalities? What does video conferencing do, particularly when they looked at global citizenship education for social studies educators? And they found that when students are in a video conference, it awakens their ideas about the world and their place in the world and their responsibility for the world. And what they found was, they wrote, whether we aim to address environmental concerns, reduce prejudice, or pursue specific projects to make a better world, video conferencing can transcend geographic boundaries and provide an impetus for action. We can help students understand that they're not alone in this world, that there is a bigger world out there to transcend those geographic boundaries, but also the kind of action that needs to take place around equity issues, around looking in poverty and helping those in need, around equality, whether it's gender equality or financial equality, these kinds of things. And when used well, video conferencing allows students a passport around the world. It opens their eyes to their place in it, their responsibility to care for the earth and each other. If you're looking to include in your teaching measures of sustainability, video conferencing can allow students to understand a little bit more about our need in a global sense to work together for sustainability. So those are just a few research components that that back up this kind of teaching that I'm sharing with you. I'm just wondering if any of the audience members have any questions so far or any responses to that first idea
Sure.
about, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to go back to the idea of lesson objectives. Do you think what you are saying is some teachers should like mention lesson objectives at the end of not at the end, at the very beginning of the session, to help students know where they are going.
Yeah.
Because
Go ahead.
some don't really like this approach. Some teachers don't really like this approach of mentioning the lesson objectives, especially in project-based learning.
Right. Well,
what do you think about this?
If you noticed that even in this session right now, I shared my. I hope I shared it. It was part of my let me just see if I can share it right now. My presentation is that I share a learning intention right at the beginning. So let's just make sure that we have it here. Okay, so if you take a look, and I may have skipped it, so maybe that's on me. But one of the parts of my presentation was to share a learning intention. Aziz, I'm not too sure if I did this right at the beginning, but my learning intention, even for this session here, was to deepen your understanding of connection-based learning and help you apply it in the classroom. It is crucial that when we're working with our students that we share these kinds of learning intentions, not to once again prescribe that I will be taking every ounce of decision-making from you, student. You will do what I say when I say it, and then I will test you at the end to see if you learned straight from me. That is not what I'm talking about. But what I am talking about is being very clear with our students, whether it's in an EFL classroom or whether we're teaching educators ourselves, to make sure that that learning intention is clear. And if I missed it at the beginning of the presentation, it was probably just because I was flipping around on my PowerPoint.
Yes, great.
Awesome. Any other thoughts?
Maybe what's the best way to conduct or to design a lesson plan based on project-based learning? What are the activities that maybe you suggest? What are the technology that can be used with the teacher?
This is perfect. I'm going to share my screen again because that goes into this idea of reframing. So the next step after we have really understood, we've kind of changed our mindset and understood the power of connection, we need to reframe what we're doing and phrase our learning goals in terms of who. Now, what I propose for you, the educators to do to kind of follow this type of teaching and learning is change the question from what or how to who. So it's not what activities am I going to have my students do, or how can I have my students learn this? What kind of worksheets or videos do I need to share? But who can we engage as we learn? It's a bit of a mind shift, but take a look at this. When we are able to shift our mindset, it leads to a whole host of possibilities to share with our students other people. So in all of these different ways, whether it's community engagement, we're engaging with the community, expert learning, that we have experts that we make a connection with to help our students learn, organization support, where we're able to gather the kind of resources we need to help students learn, or global partnerships, working with other classrooms around the world. All of these different types of connections can lead you to help your students uncover those learning outcomes that you have. And it's a matter of understanding these different ways of connecting and helping you to be able to say, okay, well, who can we engage as we learn? All right. So I want educators to consider this learning outcome. Go ahead, Aziz.
Just I want to mention something related to global partnerships.
Awesome.
You said at the very beginning that you don't want to put another pressure on on teachers because they have other tasks. And maybe do you think there is a best way maybe to integrate this approach into the curriculum?
Yeah.
For example, global partnerships. Maybe how can teachers or the school or the principal or the community integrate this into the curriculum to be part of the curriculum, because we don't
Right.
have it in the curriculum.
Yeah, definitely. Now, keep in mind that when we consider global partnerships, we're actually not taking away, like, I'm not advocating for a complete restructuring of the curriculum outcomes that we have, because I mean, I'd love to see some changes, but we need to work within the systems that we have, right? It might be overwhelming for the educators here listening to say, hey, you know, how in the world can, you know, I change the system that I'm in? But what I am advocating for is within that system to change the way that we look. So I do want to talk, I'm going to talk about global partnerships, and I'm going to share my screen again. All right,
Yes.
so global partnerships. When I think about global partnerships, the kind of connections that we have are with classrooms around the world. You know, so consider that you have this learning outcome, okay? Students will gain mastery in technical language like voltage, current, wattage, and watt hours. Let's say that this was one of your learning outcomes. Now, as I've been saying, you could create a worksheet. Creating a worksheet takes time. You could create a video. Creating a video takes time. You have to understand, right, that these things take time, whether it's the production of the video, finding the video, marking the worksheet, you know, so, but could we make a shift? So what if we were to seek out a connection? Take a look at this particular connection.
All right.
Now, can you hear this?
Yes.
I'm really excited to be able to share this moment with, I think, so it's 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗵 High School, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And we're Riverside High School here. And so my name is Sean Robinson, and I'm a science and digital literacy teacher here. And so it's really cool to connect with 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗵𝗂𝗺 and her students in Uganda. I'm hoping to hear some of the issues that the average person in Uganda is facing. And so I wanted to ask about access to clean drinking water. And I did want to talk about access to electricity as well.
Yeah, I think the thing is what she's talking about
Yeah.
is that we have electrical power in the town, but 90% of the rural areas don't have electricity, so they use solar energy to provide electricity to them.
So we had an excellent time connecting with our learning partners in Uganda. And now it's time to see what we can do to help out. We learned that 90% of the rural communities have no access to electricity. And so it's our turn to make a response to that. So why don't you post here what your idea for a response is?
All right, now I talked about, look, you've got a choice to make it as educators. You know, am I going to make that worksheet? Am I going to find that worksheet? Am I going to mark that worksheet? What I used here was a platform called Flipgrid. We made our connection with the with 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗵𝗂𝗺𝗵𝗂𝗺 and the physics 11 class that she had there. We had the dialogue. I'm sorry that I don't have a lot of my own students dialoguing, but just with the videos and things, sometimes we're just a small little thing at the bottom there. But you can just be rest assured that in these video conferences, we definitely have a dialogue back and forth. And then I asked students, on a Flipgrid to take a video of themselves with some of the ideas that they had about a response to this particular connection, particularly hearing about the fact that 90% of the rural areas don't have access to wired electricity, causing students to start to think about things, sustainable electricity, things like solar cells, any kind of solar power or other forms of electricity. And I hope that educators are starting to understand, wait a second, it's not that Mr. Robinson says, well, keep your worksheets, keep your stock videos. What I'm saying is, hold on a second, maybe you can take some of that stuff away. And as you're having your students explore these learning outcomes, that we look at it in a different way. Now, Aziz, does that help in explaining a little bit of my ideas around connections-based learning?
Yes, it's great because I am a huge fan of global partnerships. That's why I was focusing on this one, because I use it to have these global connections with the countries outside Morocco. So, and I personally learned a lot through those connections. My students also learned a lot. We learned a lot when we interact with those students, international students. So bravo to you, Sean.
Well, Aziz, what we're doing here is a global collaboration. You in Morocco, me here in Canada, and just consider the power here. We've got educators from Palestine. We've got educators maybe from Egypt. We didn't even talk about the different educators that are here just participating, connecting here. And my thoughts are to take that power that we all recognize is there and just bring it into our classrooms. That's what I'm looking for, right? To harness that power. Now, have we gotten any thoughts from the chat? Maybe you could even just share a little bit about some of the educators that are already here, and where they're from.
Yes. So as you mentioned in the slide, there are 4 levels to this connections. There is community, there are global partnerships, and what are the 2 things? The rest of the
Okay,
4 I remember. I didn't write them down.
I'll head back to the slide here.
Can you share it again? Yes.
Okay, let me just. Am I sharing my screen right now? I don't think I'm sharing my screen at all right now. Am
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Okay, so let me get to that slide. Yeah, that's an important slide because that one really it outlines what the connection lens is all about here. So
yes,
let's here, I'll share with you that. Okay. Yeah, so I've talked a little bit about global partnerships, that one in the bottom right-hand corner. Global partnerships is making a connection with other classrooms around the world, working together on a project. It's not a superimposing of maybe a Western country coming in and saying, no, this is what you need to do. This is more of a collaboration saying, well, what can we do together? And in fact, when we worked with the Dominican Republic, the students in the Dominican Republic and my students kind of worked together on these lanterns where we were able to prototype them, bring them there. They were able to mass produce them and to be able to get them out into the 𝗵𝘂𝗺s, into needy areas in Dominican Republic. Same thing with Catherine Nakabugo's class, where we worked with Catherine Nakabugo's class. And it was very interesting that when my students had certain ideas, this is how we can help. We said, can we do that? And so students publish their work on their blogs. And we had Catherine, her students from Uganda say, no, that's not going to work here. We're going to have to, take a look at those ideas and change them around. It's a collaboration. It's not just a superimposing. So that's your global partnerships. Okay. Now let's talk about connecting with, the community engagement is looking around in the community. Who can we engage in the community to help us learn? So that's the community engagement. Expert learning. Imagine receiving from an expert the most recent research on a certain topic from a person who's engaged in that aspect of things. Imagine that, right? Where we've got somebody working on this on the front lines, at the cutting edge, and we're able to glean the most recent information. Plus, we get to know what it's like to actually do this kind of work. Okay, so that's expert learning. And then organization support. Imagine an organization giving students some resources to help them do something. Or imagine students giving resources to an organization. So a sharing of resources is where organization support shines. And then, of course, we talked about global partnerships. So are there any of these four that you'd like to hear maybe just a little bit more about? Other than global partnerships, because I think we've already talked about that.
Yes, yes. All of them are great. So I was just wondering about organization support. This support that you are getting, is it in the form of maybe training students or teachers, or in the form of financial support?
It can be anything. So let me, I'm just going to stop sharing for a second and let me head over to that. I want to share a quick video around organization support here. So let's
Yes.
so I'll focus on that one. In fact, it would probably be great to do, kind of look at all of them. So here we go. And I'm just going to share my screen. So here's a little bit about something that I worked with some students on regarding organization support. Remember, that's sharing resources with an organization. So here we go. So consider this learning outcome. Students will gain an understanding of coding and how it can be used to help others. Now, when we're talking about EFL, hey, coding is a language as well. So how do we help our students to learn all about language in general, right? Not just focusing on, one language or another, but, can we learn about language in general? Does coding help us? Will ICT be a part of any kind of topic that we're doing? Well, yeah, it can be. So here is a learning outcome that we were dealing with. And here is where it went.
See the latest tech in the industry.
We had a chance to connect with government people, with students, with innovators, with companies. So it was a great time of networking.
Just to make connections with other people and to talk to them is an amazing enough of an opportunity. There's so much technology that people have created and they're able to show off here.
There's a lot of universities too, which is cool because a lot of universities will be showing maybe more their academic programs, but they have a lot of tech involved programs.
We wanted to create a smart mirror that's geared towards improving the user's mental health.
It's basically the computer run off the Pi and a monitor through a two-way reflective glass.
To be able to share their innovation, to talk about it, to explain some of the hardware side, the coding side. And so I'm just really proud of them. The skills that they were building as they were connecting, public speaking type skills, relating, communicating, doing something like this can really help out, making those connections, creating that partnership, the mentorships.
So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. This was a connection that these students made with Microsoft, and the the resources that the students were able to get from them, right? And this wasn't just about kind of funneling money or anything like that, but this was more a partnership. And that's what I'm talking about here, is creating those partnerships where the students were able to create a smart mirror that a person could look in the mirror and read emotions. Now think about all the coding that would be required to do that. And then imagine getting the training from an organization that is just willing to partner with some students. And that was a unique opportunity, but it's a great example of just, you know, kind of blowing our minds to the possibilities that can happen here, and really helping, like one organization helping another. So we were able to help Microsoft with being part of a booth at a conference, but they were able to help us with the you know, creation of this smart mirror. And the learning that took place was amazing. Imagine that, you know, from a simple connection, from a simple saying, hey, could you help us out here? All right, so that's a bit around organization support.
Yes, great ideas. Sean, you mentioned that it's not about you know, it's not Western countries with poor countries. It's more of a collaboration, right?
You got it.
So because we all education is an issue that we are all involved in. It's not like this is a superior country and this is a poor country or underdeveloped country. That's an interesting point, really.
Yeah, definitely. We have here in Canada, we have so much to learn from the countries all around us, and really bringing in a sense of, a sense of humility into education is really important. You know, it stems from the teacher being more of the guide on the side than the sage on the stage, as you've probably heard, right? So the teacher saying, no, I'm not the center of the universe here. I'm really just here supporting you, you know, serving you, and teaching the students, wait a second, our ideas here in Canada or United States or wherever aren't the center of the universe either. We have so much to learn from people around us. And we come at this, you know, the teacher shares humility, the students share humility. And, you know, with that humility, we're open to learning and to say, hey, you know, you've got something powerful to share with us. We want to know about it. So would you please, you know, share your understanding with us, and let's work together to make this world a better place and to learn about it as well.
This is great. Wonderful.
Any of the other types of, I call them the connection lens focuses. So we've talked about organization support. Expert learning, would you like to hear a bit about that?
Yes. Expert learning, you mean inviting experts and maybe using technology and inviting experts to talk about issues, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm just going to share my screen again. And here's some expert learning here. Oh, sorry, this is not what I'm looking for. Okay. Nope. Well, while I'm here, I might just share a little bit about the Sustainable Development Goals. So I wasn't able to get right back to where I was trying to go to with my screen share, but the Sustainable Development Goals kept on coming up. And this idea of the Sustainable Development Goals, it connects with what I was talking about as far as equality, because here, these are goals not for developed countries to impose on developing countries, but these are goals for the world. The United Nations, 17 goals, from no poverty all the way to partnerships for the goals, looking at gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy. These goals are for everyone to work at. Once again, it makes me think about equality, and not saying, developing versus developed country or anything like that. It is something for everyone. So we're all here working on these goals. All right. And let's see if I can get to what I was talking about, which is the expert learning here. So here we go. Okay, I'll share my screen again. Okay, consider this learning outcome. Students will develop scientific language about emerging technologies. Now, you'll probably notice I am a science teacher, so a lot of what I'm talking about is scientific, but it can be used for anything. So here, faced with this particular learning outcome, this is the kind of connection that we made.
Hi, Karis, can you see me?
I can see you, yeah.
Okay, and you can hear me. Just wanted to welcome you to our Science 9 class. Here we are at Riverside Secondary. Just a reminder, if I share this with others of my staff, it's Sean Robinson, and this is Karis. And Karis, we're so thankful that you're able to share with us this morning. We've got a few questions, but we're super interested in what you're doing with stem cells. It's great to hear something that is current, like happening now, because it sounds like the research is just going leaps and bounds. And so super excited to hear what you have to say. I'm just going to have Hannah kind of introduce us, and then we'll give you a chance to talk about yourself.
Sounds great. Hi, Hannah.
My name is Hannah, and my Science 9 class, and I have recently started doing biology. We've been learning about the cells within the human body, and we were wondering if we could just ask you a few questions regarding stem cells in particular.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. All right, I'm going to stop it there. So just imagine getting, like I said, the most recent research on stem cells from somebody in the practice, doing it at the time. And then, even more poignant is the fact that there can be some controversy around stem cells, whether it's embryonic stem cells or pluripotent stem cells. And just imagine getting the actual heart sense from that person saying, you know what, there is controversy around embryonic stem cells. I work hard at the human-induced pluripotent stem cells, which actually take away the controversy because they can be made from our blood or from our skin cells or from liver cells. We don't need to use embryos anymore, which took place in that conversation. You can hear one of my students introducing the class and saying, these are the questions that we have, the response from the expert. So you can see it's a completely different kind of connection, right? Where we have this expert learning, we have an expert that we're learning from, and yet just as powerful.
Yes, this is great. So Sean, thank you so much for
Now, Aziz, you cut out a little bit there. I did not hear what you just said. So could you say that again, please?
I said all these ideas are wonderful. I thank you for sharing them with us, with everyone Academy audience.
Fantastic. Are we kind of heading into the last little bits? Should I just share a few more ways for educators to learn about this kind of stuff?
Yes, 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 of course, yes.
Okay. Everyone here, I really want to honor your time, and I know that your time is precious. So thanks so much for sticking with us this far. I will just kind of do some kind of closing thoughts, because the question regarding this method of teaching, the questions usually revolve around, well, how do we do this, right? What resources are out there that would help us to be able to accomplish this kind of thing? How can we reach out? So I'm going to share a little bit more about reaching out, and then kind of finish off my presentation, and then see if there's any final questions here. All right. So the next section is reaching out. How do we connect to learning partners? And that, like I said, is a question that we get a lot. This is fine and dandy, but where did you find that stem cell researcher? Where did you get your connections with Microsoft? Where how did you connect with Uganda, with the Dominican Republic? What, like, could I do the same? And I would say to every educator here, yes, you can do the same. There is a bit of a snowball effect that happens. Once you make one connection, it leads to another connection. Connections beget connections. They build. So it might be tough to say, well, can I have numerous connections right off the bat? But here we have some simple emails that I've sent out to make a connection with a submersible engineer, or with the local politician, 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗵. And you can see that they're just simple emails. It's just a cold call. And I'm saying, hey, can we participate in a Skype call with you? All right. And then I talked with our local politician, and 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗵, who is our local MP, said he'd be thrilled to participate in a Skype chat. And then he gave me the phone number. Then 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗵, hi, Sean. Yes, I should be able to join you again. Please let me know once you have a date. And then Matt, Tanya Harrison, who is a planetary scientist, she connected with us. So you can see how simple emails can start those connections. The second thing, way to get those connections, is I have a website. Remember when I told you that everything starts with CBL, bit.ly/CBL. So if you go to bit.ly/CBL site, SITE, you're going to get to connectionsbasedlearning.com. You go to the Connect tab. So you hit Start and the Connect tab, and you're going to see all the 4 different types of connections that can be made, including global partnerships. And I'm just focusing on that one. So with global partnerships, you click on global partnerships at the CBL site. You've got Beluga, Edmodo, IARN, 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗵, Flipgrid. These are all fantastic resources to make connections. 𝗵𝘂𝗺𝗵, if you have students ages 6 to 11, it's a great way. All you need to put in is the age of your students, the topic that you want to talk about, and the times that you're available. And they calculate another person to connect with. It's as easy as that. We've also got Edmodo, where you can make connections. Beluga, which has a platform for video conferencing right in the app. So this is a great place to go to. What was that, Aziz?
Modo is great for partnerships. It's perfect.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I've made a lot of connections with friends on Edmodo, and Flipgrid is another one where you can do grid pals as well. Microsoft used to have Microsoft in the Classroom, which was a wonderful resource for finding experts and other classrooms, but they discontinued it in favor of Flipgrid. So now you'll have to go through Flipgrid. But these are great resources for connections-based learning. So head to the CBL site. You can even use this QR code to get there. So if you have your phone, you can just put it on camera setting and it'll take you right to the connections-based learning site. You want to bookmark that site because it has ways to connect with all 4 of the different connection focuses.
Yes, I will share it in the comment section.
Awesome. Now, coming to the end of my talk here, I want to let you know that every time I share a person with my students, I have meaning, right? I develop meaning. We saw the research there. I have motivation. It helps our students to be motivated, right? We looked at the research there. And I have a chance at empathy, a chance at building up our students' understanding of a global world out there and building the kind of empathy for people who are different from them, that they, that look different, that think different, that we can build up an understanding around an acceptance of people that have a different worldview. So that's connections-based learning, and it leads to, a lot of times it leads to activism, and it leads to world changing. And it's just a matter of making those small changes to say, I'm not going to focus on the what and the how, but I'm going to focus on a who. Before I start working on the what and the how, who can we engage as we learn? Now, here's some more ways to continue on with your CBL journey. And these are very important. So hopefully you can put these in a browser. Like I said, it's all bit.ly. So the first one is a talk that I did in EdmodoCon in Miami. So EdmodoCon 2019, this is where I was able to share connections-based learning there. So it's bit.ly/CBL talk. So that gives you a good talk, another way to learn more about connections-based learning. Of course, we have the books, whether it's the 𝗵𝐶BL book or 𝗵𝐶BL book 2 to get the most recent one. And finally, I have a magazine, a monthly newsletter that I send out to subscribers. And that is bit.ly/CBL mag. So capital CBL, smaller case MAG. And that, and I know that Aziz is subscribed to the magazine. And so he,
yes.
So he gets that. And I was able to actually put this session in the magazine to share it out with a lot more people. So those are ways that you can continue your connections-based learning journey, your CBL journey. You can also tweet 𝗵𝐶BL with a hashtag in front or @𝗵𝐶BL. That will also connect you with me and other people that are interested in connections-based learning. So that's the end of my presentation, Aziz.
Yes, great. That was great. So, Sean, can you talk briefly about?
Aziz, you cut off again. Could you repeat what you said one more time, please?
I said, can you talk briefly about your experience in Edmodo conference?
Yeah, that was great. It was a contest that I just put my name forward in. It was a video that we had to, put in a video saying why, what we had to share and why we could be an Edmodo speaker. I just threw in some ideas and was pleasantly surprised when Kate Baker and the crew from Edmodo responded back to me and asked me to fly out to Miami and share there. So it was great. Got to meet a lot of other people from around the world as well who shared their ideas. So it was really just a coming together of people's ideas, and it was a great, wonderful experience to be able to meet new people, and also to really find the similarities that we're all working to better the educational landscape and really to make the world a better place.
Great. So, Sean, thank you so much for sharing all these great ideas with Everyone Academy audience. So, do you have any maybe final comments for the Everyone Academy audience, or tips, or?
Yeah, sure. What would be
comments?
awesome is if people could, in the chat, put in an email address, and I can give you more information through the newsletter. So if you're interested in hearing more about the ideas and starting on this journey, a more connected journey in what you're doing in the classroom, then please put in your email address, and I'll ask Aziz to send those email addresses to me, and I will add them to and start sending out more and more information to you about that. It's a completely free newsletter. It's not something that that I'm charging for, but it gives you little bits and pieces about developing a connection lens, opportunities, even free. I shared my book freely for a time, and the newsletter subscribers, they get the advanced knowledge of any kind of free giveaways and things like that as well. So that would be great. And my last really thought is to, with your teaching, make it meaningful. The reason why I've pursued connection is because it adds meaning to my practice. It adds meaning for my students. It adds meaning for me as well. And it allows me to make wonderful connections with people like Aziz and everyone here at the Everyone Academy. So I would ask you to continue to pursue meaning in the things that you do. And just really want to thank all the people here so much for your kind attention, your interaction, and I hope we meet together in the future.
Yes, thank you so much, Sean. Thank you so much for sharing your presentation and your ideas. You are a great educator. You are inspiring all of us here. So thank you so much. We hope to see you soon.
You're welcome, Aziz. I hope to see you soon as well. Together. That would be awesome. That would be wonderful to be able to see you face to face. So I'm hoping that things open up soon, and one day we'll be able to see each other face to face.
Yes, 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 of course. So take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, see you.